In this video today, I'm going to be doing a bit of an exposure of WWE's weekly TV, and for many of you, this won't be an exposure. This is going to be me kind of reiterating what you kind of already know, reiterating general sentiments, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I'll be offering my honest, straight, shooting from the hip opinion about WWE TV. I'm going to be telling you guys why after next week, I'm done reviewing weekly shows outside of the occasional SmackDown. Okay, that's what's going to be covered in this video. So yeah, before I get into the video, smash the like button. How many likes can we hit? That's going to be fun to see. But yeah, smash the like button. Comment down below your thoughts on just WWE weekly TV. Do you watch weekly wrestling at all? Do you just watch either my reviews or clips on YouTube? Or do you watch the full shows? Do you watch the 3-hour Raw every week? If so, why? All that kind of stuff. So yeah, comment that down below. Without further ado, I just want to get into this. So, if you've seen the Elite Heat Episode 2 podcast, you would have heard much of this, but I want to really go into a bit more detail in this video today, because I feel like when I think weekly wrestling, weekly wrestling, one of the big things that's killed weekly wrestling a lot is the overexposure. I think that's very fair, because back in the Attitude Era, yes, there were two companies, okay, but you look at what each company were doing. It was one Monday night show from WWF, one Monday night show from WCW, and yeah, there'd be Thunder, and you'd have, Heat, but realistically, there'd be a Raw, a Nitro, and then you'd have, a pay-per-view for each company, once a month. You compare that to nowadays with pro wrestling, and you look at the amount of wrestling there is, okay, there's so much wrestling to a point where, for one, you either get burnt out because there's just that much wrestling to try and keep on top of, or two, there's so much wrestling that there's not enough talking points on the wrestling. So I'll elaborate. When I watch a wrestling show as a content creator, what I want to see is not a good 2 hours of just good matches. Okay, as a content creator especially, but as just a TV viewer in general, you want something or some things from that 1, 2, hell, 3 hours in the case of Raw. God, yuck, 3-hour shows. You want something from that episode of whichever show you're watching that when you finish the episode, you go, okay, that was worth my time. Enough stuff happened to where I'm interested to see what happens next week. I enjoyed my viewing experience, all that kind of stuff. But when you watch, be that WWE wrestling shows, particularly Monday Night Raw, NXT, especially from about April 2020 through about October 2020, when you think AEW Dynamite, most weeks, when you think those shows, and then the obvious ones, Impact Wrestling, they're like this as well. You've got NXT UK, they're like this as well. I don't watch MLW, so I can't make an informed assessment there. Neither do I watch ROH, so they could be like this, but I don't really watch them. 205 Live, Main Event, these shows, you can go on and on and on. The main issue with weekly wrestling is that not enough happens as a TV show to justify you watching it. Okay, because back in the Attitude Era, how they'd structure the shows, they'd have something big happen to open the show, or they'd hype you up. Oh my God, Steve Austin's getting here in 20 minutes. Okay, and then you'd have a really compelling match to open the show, and it'd be Austin's arriving in the arena. What's going to happen? Austin gets there, and the corporation destroy him, and then the Rock gets involved, and Triple H is taking out The Rock, and there are these whole night-long storylines. But how weekly wrestling is booked nowadays, particularly WWE, but AEW is by no means immune to this criticism. You see the weekly wrestling, and it's just, everything's in front of WWE. Everything's in front of AEW. You don't really see this, we're going to branch out and really try and get creative. You see this very through the motions, very, what can we do to get through these 1, 2, or 3 hours, get our payments from advertisers, sponsors, and the networks, then move on to the next week's show. That's realistically what weekly wrestling is. Weekly wrestling is a way for these companies to get their money from the sponsors, the networks, these kind of advertisers, and then from there just move on and then get to the pay-per-view. That's realistically all it is. Because I look at Monday Night Raw especially. Okay, Monday Night Raw, a 3-hour wrestling program. Now, if you've seen the Elite Heat podcast, what I'll be saying here isn't breaking hot off the press content, but I want to reiterate it for anyone who hasn't seen the Elite Heat podcast, which I'll link in the description. Monday Night Raw, especially, is in this horrid format where it's a 3-hour show. Okay, it's 3 hours of wrestling content. 3 hours a week, bro. Jesus. 3 hours. It's 3 hours, and you watch Raw, and you're sitting there, you're trying to watch the 3-hour show, and you've got this just meaningless crap. You see Sheamus versus, I don't know, Sheamus versus Riddle in a 15-minute match. What are they fighting over? You tell me, because most of the time it's nothing. So you see a 15-minute match there, you see a 3.5-minute commercial. Tom Phillips tells us about something we saw literally 5 minutes earlier, so that goes for 2 minutes. There's a backstage segment where Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke are arguing about what Nia Jax did to them. You go to a match, and the match is Dana Brooke versus Shayna Baszler. We see Dana Brooke and Shayna Baszler for 7 minutes. We go back to commercial, and that right there, just off the top of my head, that example of Monday Night Raw, which they do that right there every week, that right there is, what, 35 minutes of Monday Night Raw? And what do you get? You get Matt Riddle and Sheamus punching each other for no reason, Dana Brooke having an issue with Shayna Baszler, Grand Metalik beating random wrestlers. You see Elias and Jackson Riker running out there. You have Drew McIntyre doing his promo, where it's mostly very similar every week, which usually it's like the same thing, but nonetheless, I'm a fan of Drew McIntyre, so no shots fired there, but Drew does his promo. The main event will be like McIntyre, Keith Lee, and Sheamus versus AJ Styles, Miz, and Morrison, and you're just left after the end of the show thinking, what did I just watch? Because on a 3-hour show, the only thing that's worth watching is a 5 to 10 minute Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton segment. That's been the case for literally the past 3.5 months. I'm dead serious. The last 3.5 months, the only thing worth watching on a 3-hour weekly wrestling program has been Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton's segment on the show. And The Fiend. That's been it. The rest of the show has been, as I just mentioned, Dana Brooke versus Mandy Rose. It's been, as of right now, Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax. You have all these just constant matches that you don't care about. A complete waste of time. You get to see Angel Garza versus, I don't know, Grand Metalik for no reason. That's Raw. SmackDown is genuinely worth watching because of, I mean, you guys all know who. Roman Reigns, and then for many people, Sasha Banks, and I'd agree with that. That's SmackDown. But nonetheless, SmackDown has a lot of the same issue. And really, the issue with weekly wrestling as a whole, there's so much of it, not a lot happens. And then, if you don't watch it, you can easily watch the pay-per-view events. Okay, you can just watch TLC, for example. Like, this is the example gone by. Turn on TLC, not having watched the past 4 weeks of WWE TV on the build-up. You can not watch any of those. Let's see, so Raw, 4 shows, 3 hours each, 12 hours of Raw, SmackDown, 4 shows, 2 hours each, 8 hours in total. You can easily not watch the 21 hours of WWE content, and then you can watch TLC, and they can do all their 2.5 minute, very glamorous WWE edited up video packages. You can watch those video packages in the build-up segments, and you can literally ascertain the full build-up and everything you need to know in literally a 2-minute video package at the pay-per-view. So where's the incentive to watch weekly wrestling? When the weekly wrestling is a 2-3 hour show where the only thing worthwhile is either Roman Reigns' segment or Alexa Bliss's and Bray Wyatt and the Randy Orton segment. When that's weekly wrestling, and AEW is by no means immune to this. AEW, for them, what their instance is every weekly Dynamite is about 3 to 5 tag team matches. And in the case of the Brody Lee tribute episode, that is completely understandable. Absolutely no shots fired there. That was a beautifully done show. But generally speaking, how AEW Dynamite run their shows, you get 3 to 5 tag team matches, a 2-on-2 tag, 2-on-2 tag, 6-man tag, 2-on-2, a 12-man tag. So you get all these matches, and it's kind of like, okay, so they're just trying to really get through time, showcase the teams, then you get the pay-per-view, they put together a really good video package, and then you go, okay, that's the build, I don't need to see the TV shows, and that's that. Really, that's what the thing is, because back in the Attitude Era, back in the Ruthless Aggression Era, when the writers of those shows wrote the shows to try and keep you as the viewer invested right through the full 2-3 hours, back when that was the case, when the TV was written as TV and not written as wrestling just to get the advertiser money, the sponsors money, the network money, when it was written as a TV show with Vince Russo and the guys who wrote Raw back in the day, it was must see. You couldn't miss a minute, because if you did, the next day at work, people around the cooler would be talking about what happened, and you didn't want to miss a thing, and you wanted to be fully across everything that happened on the show, because every 2 minutes something new, something interesting, something compelling was happening. Whereas nowadays, as I mentioned, if you miss a whole episode of Raw, what are you going to miss? You're going to miss, I don't know, Keith Lee and Sheamus having a 20-minute match. You're going to miss Miz and Morrison doing the dirt sheet. Oh, wow. You're going to miss AJ Styles having Omos save him in a match against someone he should be beating anyway. You're going to miss Dana Brooke versus Nia Jax. You're going to miss... What even happens on Raw nowadays? Like, seriously, nothing. Like, that's basically the point. You're going to miss a bunch of basically nothing, and then you're going to be better off with it. You're going to watch someone in the community's review. They're going to say, the Alexa Bliss segment was the only thing worth watching. You'll go watch the Alexa Bliss segment. It'll take you 2.5 minutes, and you'll be completely caught up with Raw. That's weekly wrestling, okay? So that's been the video. That's been me exposing the sad truth about weekly wrestling and why you as a viewer can save your time. You can pursue self-improvement. You can spend your time, I don't know, on the PlayStation, the Xbox. You can be reading, going to the gym, talking to family, meeting up with friends, meditating, doing bloody anything outside of watching WWE, because WWE... Even AEW, even though AEW, there's only one show every week, like Dynamite actually matters. Like, I don't count Dark. Dark's a bunch of talents from random indie promotions having 4-minute matches, but nonetheless, Dynamite is a bit different because it's like the one-off show every week. But particularly WWE, it's just sad. Like, it's just pathetic. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, no drill. See ya.